If you are a voter in Washington state, you're likely acutely aware of the issues regarding election integrity and election security that has been going on now for decades. Today, I've got an update on a bill that was just signed into law by Governor Bob Ferguson that expands Washington state's automatic voter registration program. Hey, everybody, I'm Julie Barrett, and I am the founder of Conservative Ladies of America. And I am back today with an update about a bill that we were tracking very closely all throughout the 2025 legislative session in Washington state. That is Senate Bill 5077. Currently, Washington has what is referred to as the motor voter law. So, if you go in to get a driver's license, you would automatically be registered to vote. Senate Bill 5077 expands the automatic voter registration far beyond the Department of Licensing. So, if you were to sign up for health insurance benefits through the Health Benefits Exchange, or if you were to get, say, food stamps or anything like that, any kind of government services, you would be automatically registered to vote in Washington state unless you were to opt out. We don't really know what that opt out would look like yet, but my guess is that it would be pretty discreet. It would be very easy for someone who is signing up for any kind of social services to probably miss the checkbox to opt out. Of course, supporters claim that this is about increasing access and strengthening democracy. But as I mentioned in my original video back in December, this expansion of automatic voter registration really raises more questions about voter roll security, data security, and the potential for non-citizens to slip through the cracks. In February, the bill passed through the Senate, which is the first stop on its way through the legislative process. And at that time, the prime sponsor of the bill, Senator Javier Valdez, championed it, saying, and I quote, "This bill is about making sure every eligible Washingtonian has the opportunity to participate in our democracy." He also called it a step towards a more inclusive democracy. We often hear the left talking about democracy. Well, America isn't a sole democracy. We are a constitutional republic. A constitutional republic is designed to protect the individual rights of its citizens and prevent against mob rule. Well, here's the thing. Republicans, and not just in Washington, Republicans across the board have been starting to use that democracy language. And in fact, in January, the Republicans in Washington state held a rally for democracy in Olympia after the House Democrats changed a rule, thereby limiting what the Republicans were able to say on the House floor. It allowed the Democrats to silence them during the debate process. And so, in response, the GOP and the legislative Republicans held this rally for democracy. It's really important that we, on the side of the non left, whatever you want to call that, if you identify as a Republican or a conservative or just somebody common sense, we cannot use their language. And it's really important as Americans that we don't call this a democracy, because that's not the kind of government that we have. Today, May 17th, 2025, Governor Bob Ferguson signed into law Senate Bill 5077.
Senate Bill 5077 expands access to voting in Washington state by allowing more state agencies and tribes to participate in the state's automatic voter registration program. Automatic voter registration began in Washington with the motor voter law in 2018 through the Department of Licensing. This bill allows my office and the Secretary of State to expand automatic voter registration services to other state agencies that collect a person's name, residential address, date of birth, affirmation of citizenship, and signature. It also allows tribes to participate in this important program.
This is going to have a big impact on Washington state elections. And one of the things that we often hear, a lot of comments that we even get on our YouTube videos and on our Substack posts, is we've got to go back to in-person voting. And what I want you to know, if you are in Washington state, it's really not so easy as just to like flip a switch and go back to in-person voting. The Democrats in Washington state have incrementally over the last couple of decades since, 2004, a lot of people probably remember that when Dino Rossi was running against Christine Gregoire for the Washington state governor's seat. And they did recounts on that. They were finding ballots in trunks, and it was terrible. That was the first time I voted. And then I didn't vote again until 2016 because I was so put off by the fact that the Democrats could rig the elections like that. They would find the ballots that they needed to win. And since then, in 2004, 21 years later, the Democrats have slowly been chipping away at Washington state's election process. And unraveling that is going to be no easy process. And so if you are someone who is staying and fighting in Washington state, you need to understand how far they've pushed the election laws, just from mail-in ballots to all of the other bad garbage election laws that they've added on top of that, making them incrementally worse. So you have to start repealing bills one at a time. And of course, that can't happen until you get more Republicans elected into office. And the way that you do that is to get involved at a local level. The best chance you have of electing non-Democrat people to office is at a local level, at your city council, county council. And once you have that foundation, then you can build out to a state level. But there's no way, at least in my opinion, for a Republican to win a statewide office in Washington state for a very long time until you're able to unravel some of these really bad election laws. And that's going to take a long time. If you do not live in Washington state, heed this warning, because this is something that the Democrats would love to do in every state and at a federal level, which is why we haven't seen the SAVE Act passed in Congress, which would require proof of citizenship to be able to vote in federal elections. The way that we stop this is to be engaged in the process, to keep an eye on what laws are being passed in our state legislatures and at a federal level, and being engaged in that process, communicating with your legislators, or being willing to testify on some of these bad bills or good bills. We need to be there regardless if we're fighting in opposition or we're there in support. Important for us to show up if we want change in our state and in our country. I've got my first video on this bill, which goes into more detail than this video, linked down below, as well as a link to the text of the bill so that you can go read it for yourself. I would love to hear your thoughts on this new law in Washington state. I know that the elections and voting is a hot topic for most people, so I'm curious to hear what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Please do share this video far and wide to let your Washington friends know about this new law and to serve as a warning for folks who do not live in Washington state. If you're not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our Substack, as that is the best way to get breaking alerts and calls to action. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.